Well, hello everybody, and all the people who watch this. I'm so grateful to you. I'm so grateful to you, Sam, for doing this, but I mean, I get some lovely responses from people. And so obviously we're doing a good job between us somewhere along the line. And I wanted to tell you something. I woke up one morning and I sat up and I had to get a pen and write some poetry. So I thought I'd read it because it's only short. I actually wrote 3 poems just like that. Now, I never ever write poetry, on very, very rare occasions. I write prose, not poetry. And this particular morning, I woke up. And as I say, I wrote 3 poems. The first one, which I'm not going to read, but it was called Needles of Death. However, having written that, I then carried on writing, and this is what came. I left my love and beauty far behind, descended into what I do not understand. Chaos, no order here. Humanity is blind. Lost souls wandering across an ancient land. All connection broken to that gracious hand, held out in love, wherewith communion heals and saves those hearts so broken, and reveals a world more ordered, joyous and renewed. Life, alive and living, no longer defiled and crucified. Well, that was the first one. And then there was another one that came. I know not whence I came, or why I linger here. I only know that love remains within my heart, from some place far away, far, far beyond the stars, where love creates all things with joy. Well, whoever sent that to me first thing in the morning, I'm very grateful. And today, I'm going to speak about something very personal to me, and it's about my father. I had a wonderful father. He was kind, creative, generous, and I was born in 1936, so that was 3 years before the war. And the war came, and I was about 4 years old when my father left and went to serve king and country, or whatever you like to call it. He didn't only leave, he was taken halfway across the world to India. And he spent his wartime in India, in, I believe it was Calcutta. I don't know exactly where he was, but the letters came from Calcutta. And he came home when I was 10, just about 9 or 10. And we had a wonderful time with him. Life was hard after the war because I'll tell you that we had a house in Loudon but it had been rented out during the war because my mother had taken us off to the Cotswolds, to a tiny, tiny cottage with no facilities whatsoever, and a loo right up the garden, with lots of spiders and newspaper for toilet paper. And we lived there all during the war with my sister, my mother, my mother's younger brother, and my grandmother. We lived in this tiny little cottage. However, my father came home when I was 9, and we moved to Midhurst in Sussex, which is where my grandmother came from. And we actually lived in my grandmother's place where she lived as a child, which would now belong to her nephew. And it was a great big place, and we lived in that with my mother. This wasn't to last long, because when I was 19, my father was coming home for Christmas, and he was killed on a motorbike. That was on the 23rd of December. However, I didn't hear until Christmas Eve, and so to me it's always Christmas Eve. And that changed our lives completely, utterly and completely. However, I won't go into that. I just wanted to say what a lovely person my father was, to me anyway. Anyway, many, many years later, all my magical and mystical work began with Margot. And one day, and I've told you about John Powell's before, who was one of Margot's guides, John Powell's mentioned, and these were his words. This was now my father died in 1955, and he was 49. And this was in 1979, so this is 24 years later. John Powell is speaking, and he said, "Now I have another man who goes by the name of Matt. He says, tell Carolyn he loves her and will always be there when there is trouble at home, and she must obey her own instincts. He will speak again soon, but has not the power at present to say much." Well, my father's name wasn't Matt, but he was called Matt. His name was George Eric Matthew, but he was called Matt. So that was lovely evidence for me that he was speaking to John. Of course, Margot, of course, never knew my parents. Didn't know their names or anything, and I'd never mentioned to her that my father was known as Matt. And then later on, again in 1979, there was just a short message from my own guide, Frances Willard. And she was some lady, I might tell you. She stood up for women's rights in her time, and she was the equivalent, I suppose, of a suffragette, really, in America. And she spoke with an American accent. And this was on the 28th of September, 1979. And she just said, "There are those that have passed on with you very often. 2 ladies who you know," that would have been my mother and my grandmother, "and your father, who all come from the halls of learning and the waters where all rest to bring a little extra knowledge to you through your inner self." So that was in 1979. So I knew that my father was always going to be with me when there was trouble at home, and there's often trouble at home when you're married and you've got plenty of children and plenty of other people around as well, and all the trials and tribulations of life. And so I always knew he was there somewhere. And then one day in March 2001. My sister and I were sitting in her little sitting room in Freshwater, and Robin had come for a short stay. And we was just sitting there chatting like you and I have been chatting earlier on. And suddenly Robin said, "There's someone with me. There's someone with me," he said. And then off he went. Well, the first person to come through was very sad. My sister, when she was getting married, her fiancé was killed on the night, on stag party, the night before the wedding, coming home. And it was a very shocking time in our lives. But this young man came through Robin, and he was Welsh, and this Welsh accent came through Robin speaking to my sister. And it was very personal. And we both ended up in tears. In fact, I think Robin had tears as well. It was very, very moving. Anyway, he said, "There's someone else here too." And it was my father, our father. And this is what he had to say. By the way, there's a picture. There's a picture of my father in the military in Calcutta. He ended up as a lieutenant colonel. And this came through Robin. Motorcycles were never the thing for me, you know. He was riding a motorcycle home, by the way. He was coming home from Bristol to Midhurst. Whatever made me ride the damn thing, I really don't know. My girls, oh, I can't tell you how long it has been waiting for your son to open his eyes to see that I am here. So long. Oh, the pain of my death, the misbelief, the misconception, so difficult. 1 minute cycling along on this machine, and the next just gone. I couldn't even prepare you to let you know I was leaving. I couldn't even leave a message. You know how much I like to let you know how I love you. The sheer thought of it. I'd only just returned, and the next moment, gone. Your mother and I never really saw eye to eye. There were so many things that we never let come to fruition. We never really decided that our life was together or apart. So therefore we stayed together. I was not the best husband, and I was not the best father to you both. Now, him having said that, as far as we were concerned, he was the best father. Only that he wasn't there very much, because he worked away. You must understand that it was my wish to attain a semblance of wealth, fame, and whatever I felt at the time to bring home. The gallant soldier returns. I fought the battle and lost. I was a man broken by circumstances. The war does many things to people. What it did to me was not necessary for my growth. You both suffered from lack of parenting, and I have tried so much to make up through sending you the love that I never gave you properly as children. You never complained what I gave you, but it was never enough. Children deserve more. I broke your mother's heart too many times to mention, and withheld within both of you. You feel that your hearts need to be broken so many times to be as classic as your mother. You must break that mould, my children. Your heart is your own, not mine, not your mother's. It is not for children to continue in the light of footsteps of predecessors. It is for them to speak and do in their own light. We will speak again, my children. We know the channel is there. Prepare yourself for your dreams. I love you both. Well, as you can imagine, my sister was already crying. Now we were bawling. It was very, very emotional. And it was so unexpected, so unexpected. And Robin's sitting there, having just channeled all this and feeling the emotions that were coming through as well. And he suddenly said to me, to us both, he said, that your mother's here as well. He said, but I'm afraid I can't do any more. He said, you two are both too emotional to receive what she has to say. And so that was the end of that little episode. However, we both knew and know that our Father is constantly around us, which I think people should know. And this is what my stories are about. They're all about the fact that there is no death. It's just a continuous, instantaneous change. There's no waiting around in the grave waiting for resurrection. Oh no, none of that. It's, you're here now, get on with it. Go to the halls of learning, learn what you've got to do and where you've got to go and whether you're going to be recycled back on the karmic wheel, which I hope no one is these days, but many will be, sadly. However, that wasn't the end of the story. I used to go to the spiritualist church. It's a very open-minded church. And I went, Mary Madison came back to the island one day, and she had gone to the spiritualist church as well as the Catholic church. And she said to me, I met Sonia and Melvina, who run the church here in Ventnor. And she said, it's been going through a terrible time while I've been away. I think I'll go tonight and see what's going on. So she said, would you like to come? So I said, yes, I'll come and support Sonia and Melvina. And apparently the church had run down so much that they were going to close it. And the organisation asked Sonia and Melvina, their sisters, whether they would be prepared to take on the church as they had done previously. And they thought their time with the church had finished, but in fact, it had only just begun again. So I went, and I continued to go to support Sonia and Melvina because the church, the people who were coming, there were very few people. And gradually they built it up until it was a full church again. And so that was why I went to support, because my learning had gone far beyond just the spiritualist movement, that as it is today, really, because you don't get these deep messages. Only it appears in private meetings. So anyway, I'm sitting in the church one Sunday evening, and there's a medium on the platform that I hadn't seen before. And he goes around and gives a few messages. And I never expect a message. And he came to me, he said, I've got somebody here for you. He said, no, it's just a name. He said, oh, that's all I've got. He said, and it's Wilhelmina. I looked at him and I said, well, I don't know anyone called Wilhelmina. Left it at that. And that was all he gave me. Anyway, the following Sunday I went again. And there was a medium, another one that I hadn't seen, a new medium to the church. And he comes to me. And he said, I don't have very much to give you. But he said, I do have a name. And the name is Wilhelmina. I thought, uh-oh, the universe is on the phone again. This is important. So that I went home that evening and I rang Robin. I said, I've just had 2 strange synchronistic experiences and the name Wilhelmina has been given to me. Can you get any information on this? He said, hang on a minute, Carolyn, I'm getting something right now. He said, this is something to do with your father's life in India that you knew nothing about. He said, I'll see what I can get. So, this is what he got. December the 2nd, 2012. There is a need of inquiry with regards to the lady Wilhelmina. Good evening, my friends. I channel the energy of Wilhelmina. Wilhelmina was an energy process required to bring forth energy into a family. She came in the form of a young lady. She came in the form of love. She was a transient being that did not belong to this planet and was here but a short time in your lifespan. She presented herself in India and died in 1942. Her destiny was to transcend energy and bring that forth. She was a way shower, an energy process being. There's no point giving you family names. The energy form was Wilhelmina, and Wilhelmina fell in love with your father, Carolyn, my grandfather. That's Robin speaking there. He was a kind man, and he witnessed many things that he never spoke of, in the form of aggression, neglect, and many forms of humane expansion of consciousness. But he chose not to talk of or discuss these matters. They were matters for men, not matters for women. He was a gentleman, and still is, and he listens to these words now and understands why they come into place. It is important, my dear child, my dear person that transcends this energy, to understand that Wilhelmina is much of the same source as the sun, Robin. They carry a thought, they carry a form, and they carry an energy. The man fell in love with this young lady. He transduced energy. He experienced energy not only in the love form, but in the exchange. The exchange not only in the form of love, care, compassion, and sharing of bodies. It was the sharing of energies that was most important. And in doing so, his energy changed from that point onwards. Yes, he was indeed lost to the world when he returned. Many men were when they returned from their war, and they had inner turmoil within. There were many things that your father, my grandfather, never spoke of. He involved himself much in many things he did not speak of. But he was a man of kindness. He was kind not only to himself, but to many men and women that were around him. He found it difficult when he returned to be personable, because he had lost the heart within him. She had passed away. But he could not speak of this, for that was not the actions of a gentleman. So he lost himself in work, and in drink, and in flirtatious behaviour, which really was not the man that he was, but he became this because of the hole that was in his heart. Many people speak of many things, but many people do not speak of things they need to speak of, but never do. Their hearts stay closed. It was his time to pass when he did. But he passed something on to you, my dear child Carolyn, that listens to this tape. He passed an energy on to you, and that energy you still carry. It is the energy of the plexus. It is the Trinity, the plexus of thought, and it is the resistance to entail yourself in the format of normal men and women. It allows you to stand in your own light and be in your own light, and that you must do. Your strength is needed most at this point in time, when things around you do not seem real. They are not real. It is almost like you are existing and watching things, but they don't appear to be real. They are somebody else's reality, but they're not yours. You are in a zone, as most people are. It is like there is a gauze between you and what you are seeing and feeling, because you are gradually moving over to another format of energy. This is what is happening. Those that stay and those that do not. Wilhelmina was a love for your father, but only acted as a gateway into another vision of estimation. In the same way that the child here has had his heart taken away at one point in his life, it wasn't about experience. It was about the exchange of love, not the vows, but the exchange that love allows it to be. Many other things transcend on in life, but true love is something that does not come to us many times. It is where your heart is not in its place. It is in a square hole. The reason why you have been given the name Wilhelmina is to understand that you are part of a process. Not only the child that speaks, but the lady that hears. You are interconnected, interwoven in a fabric of understanding that many, many others do not understand. It is about understanding that the plexus is the connection to an energy that circumvents the normal focus of humanity's energy. You will understand more about this, but you must engage your hearts to all that need it now. Just allow love to flow from you with care and compassion as and when it is needed. Even to those you do not feel they deserve it. Allow them to be your love. Allow them to be your love. You will find yourself being more loving and caring towards things you found you weren't before. This is part of what is needed for you to be and transcend what is important in this time of great need. Listen. Your heart's focus is your focus of heart. God bless you and thank you for listening. Wilhelmina was the name. She was a being of differential. She died of energy. It was not of illness, it was of energy. The energy was too much, and she passed away with an ailment that nobody could figure out. She was blessed, and so will you be blessed. It was her part. Your father did not understand why she passed, and it was very, very difficult for him. Times are different now, but times were different then. Allow the love to flow. Allow yourself to be love. So that was the message that I got as a result of hearing the name Wilhelmina. And I might tell you that it says there she died of energy. Well, I think I've told you before that Robin has had 5 times where he's been near death with the energy coursing through his body with very, very high temperatures. So he knows what that is like, and that is what Wilhelmina died of. She died of energy, not an illness. However, that wasn't the end of Wilhelmina, because this is Robin channeling now. On the 12th of the 12th, 12, we spoke earlier of the energy of Wilhelmina. She was indeed a being of mixed race. She lived and died in a very short span of life. She was an energy thought format. She was a changeling, much as the child that speaks is a changeling. I remember my father saying to me that the most beautiful women in the world were the Anglo-Indians. And now I understand why. She was a being of mixed race. In April the following year, a message came through. We talked previously of the Lady Wilhelmina. It is interesting that the search has been required for more information. She was only born to this planet in 1928. One asks oneself, but she would only have been 14 in 1942 when she passed. Indeed, she was born to this planet. She came and lived with nature. She was almost beamed down as such, not in a child form, but in an early adolescent form. She lived amongst nature and walked out of nature into the human form, and that is where she was for a period of time, elongating who she was. But the energies were too strong for her at that point in time, and it was deemed suitable for her to leave the planet. She knew subconsciously that that was what was occurring. But the energy of Wilhelmina lays within the child, Robin. It is the same energy process, from the same place, the same spectrum. So in some respects, the child was touched emotionally, spiritually, and physically by his own grandfather. He knew of his essence. He knew of the love. He carries that within him. Not within him on a soul level, but on a knowledge level. A feeling, a sensation that goes within. Wilhelmina was a carrier of a flame. She carried a flame not only for Robin's grandfather, but she carried a flame for humanity. And she saw where humanity was stepping the wrong stones and walking the wrong tightrope. But these processes were part of the understanding of what humanity needs to go through. And everything is happening for a reason. The pollution of the seas, the pollution of the planet, the pollution of the mindset of the average human being. It is foul. But you must understand what is required at this point in time to get to the end of the tether, the end of the line, where the tightrope breaks. June the 23rd, 2020. Your father was a man that carried the light, and had no idea what all the silent promptings he received meant. He was confused by them and drove himself hard to try and shut them down. He was, and still is, a good man, and suppression was the eventual creation of his downfall and his leaving so early in yours and your sister's lives. Full facts would muster different action, and reality could not be as it is, or at least as energy deems it to be, if we were privy. So that was the story of Wilhelmina and my father in India, and the reason why my father carried the energy, because it transcended from Wilhelmina to my father, and it's come through my father to myself and to Robin. Now, for some time, my sister has been experiencing a smell in her room, in her sitting room, in her flat. And she said to me, I keep getting this smell of, it's like an Indian smell. It's like incense. She said, and sometimes I'll walk into my room and I walk right into it. She said, and there's nothing in the room that could possibly give off that smell. So Robin came to stay, and she told Robin about it. And this was what we got. This was on the 27th of September 2020. We did wonder whether it was something to do with our father. However, as she was sitting in the evening with Robin, someone called Mahatma Lumpali came to speak with Robin. And this is what he had to say. I am of the pilgrim type. I used to sit on the street corners and wait for people to ask advice with their questions. I watched your father walk by many times with his smart uniform and army stance, with either one hand or both behind his back. He had the weight of the world on his shoulders, but I had to wait for him to ask advice. One day, your father came up and greeted me and said, "You are a simple man, and I have a simple question for you." He expressed his concern about the state of the world and his 2 children back home. He had been hearing voices in his head that weren't his own, and this concerned him and his ability to lead. He kept his voices to himself and shut them away behind a closed door. He did not want to take leave of his senses or sensibility. On his first visit to Mahatma, he walked away and said, "I will take leave of this conversation today." But there were many, many more to be had thereafter. Mahatma said, "An empty pilgrim is no use to anybody. But when a pilgrim's life is made full by helping others, then their journey begins. The man that I helped that day was never fully happy with the answers I gave him from the heavenly realms, and continued to be that captain that gave orders, but was not necessarily prepared to receive them unless they came through normal channels. He was a kind man, but was not prepared to fully cross the bridge that would help him the most, I accepted his choice, but wish to help further. And in so doing, I am helping his children. And this, he said, for my sister. I will be there in your time of need. Do not fear at your choice when you eventually pass, because the luminescent light that you follow will be the right path for you that day. We are all indeed pilgrims, not only of this land, but of many other lands away from the site that you have been placed with. I always burn incense on my street corner, and it is that smell that stays with me. And it is that smell you taste and feel that you acknowledge. Bless you, my child. Bless you. Well, that is the end of my personal story. And I thought people might like to know a little bit of my personal life, because I sit here telling my stories about the magical and the mystical things that have happened to me. But this is also a magical and mystical thing that happened for me, and I thought I would like to share it. So I begin to of course I've had lots of information from Robin since, personal information, but that is for me personally. However, Robin has been receiving some more information, and I thought I would read that to you. This was received on February the 7th, so it's the very latest. It has been a while since I last channeled, but it has been building up for a while, so here I go. That's Robin's personal words, of course. A change of heart, my people. That is what this is. A change of heart. In retrospect, they could have called it many things, but it is what it is. Now, by the way, there are a few words that I haven't been able to pick up because I had to transcribe this from my voice recorder, which I put close to my iPad that Robin was putting his recorder next to. And some of it was a little tinny and I couldn't get a few of the words. Of course, those that tune in to what is going on over and above, and that is over and above what is going on the planet, the world and the universe, there is a much bigger picture going on other than what you see right now. So of course your eyes are not tuned into those vibrations, but your body is tuning into change. And change with a capital C is happening to us all. One must understand that this change happens in your body. Things simplify. When we say simplification, what actually occurs is the manifestation of alterations. Alteration on a magnanimous scale. My children, you may experience what is known as the change of heart. This is a change of vibration. Your universe, as such, is changing its situation. It is changing its onus. It is changing its beating pattern. And by doing so, there is corrections going on within your satellite, your universe, known as your heart. So you, us, we, all those that are understanding what is going on, are feeling changes within your heart. Because what is occurring is that heart is adjusting its beat. It is adjusting its beat to match a vibration of change. Now, my children, for something to change, much has to change, and for change to manifest itself, much changes alongside that. We cannot go into the ramifications of what this means, because it is outside of your universal thinking. But nevertheless, for you to rejoin your universe of thinking, that and which has not been for over 2,000 years, you will be rejoining a new manifestation of change. The whole world has been experiencing what is known as a manufactured disease. It is there for one reason, and one reason only: to subject the human frame to the inability to change its heartbeat. And here a strange word was given, and simplified. He said, I don't know why that word, it has just said it in that way, simplified. But there you go. If you can imagine that if you want to go from A to B, and it is an easy transit between A and B, that is fine. The manifestations of change within your own heartbeat will happen in a heartbeat. But if there is a roadblock somewhere in between, and you have to go around that, through it, or you stay behind it, and don't change at all, that is the reason for this manufactured curse. It is to stop you changing your heartbeat. It is to stop the human vibration from changing its resonance and recondensing itself as such. By changing your vibration, my children, what will happen is you will start allowing yourself to regenerate genetic inheritance that allows strands to come to you. It will change your strandage and become unstranded as such. I think they're talking about the DNA there. That is difficult to comprehend. Why is that occurring? Who is part of this? Who is manifesting this change? Why? And what for? You must understand that if you could, outside of the realm, outside of the sensations of the human framework, there is so much more to universal intellect than you can ever envisage. There is, of course, many things. We are not in direct conflict with those that choose to oppose the change in human frequency. We do not oppose them or the reason. What we do oppose is the fact the human being does not understand what is occurring because they have not been told. They have been misled. And when you are misled, it is like taking somebody other than a safe route home. You take them on a dangerous route that is full of perils and dangers, and it takes you away from your pathway. My children, you are walking blindly wherever you are on the planet right now, and you are using the only thing you have inside you is your satellite intelligence that connects you to your source, that does not necessarily have a maintenance faculty about it. You are relying on yourself. The man Jesus went and did his trip in the Sinai. his 40 days and 40 nights. What he was doing was learning trust at that point, letting go of the onus that planet Earth gives you in the name of comforts. You go out and you trust in yourself. He was journeying at that point, earning that trust, that innate connection to that source, which is known as his Father. You must understand that the priorities of all man are there for reasons. You have options. There is no reason to change. There is no reason to accept the change of heart. You can stay as you are. You will not be judged. There will be no red carpet for those that get it right or wrong. What there will be is a possibility of alteration. That is all. But the connection is, if you have and are offered an opportunity to understand that the world is round, you are round, that everything around you is there to support you, but you haven't got the opportunity to understand what that is, because your ears have been switched off, and your binaural rhythms have been changed and adjusted, and your worldly patterns are those connected to planet Earth and planet Earth only, other than the universe. You, my children, are universal beings, always have been and always will be. You need to retune yourselves by accepting what it is that you are, what it is that you are being tested by change of heart. This is a united change. All heartbeats in themselves have a rhythmic pattern, connecting to the universe that they are connected to. If that universe is small, then the pattern is small. If the universe is large, then the pattern changes. It is as simple as that. It is a coding, a universal coding. Your heartbeat is not just the heartbeat within your chest. There is a rhythmic ping, like a sonar, that is sent out each time that rhythmic pattern beats. It continues beating after your demise as a human being. It is the beating of your DNA. Your DNA, my children, has a heartbeat. It is a resonance. It resonates out to the universe, where you are. And I didn't get that word, but it continued, as a soldier of the universe. Soldier is not used in the word as to conflict. A soldier in itself is someone that is prepared to confront threatening patterns without creating conflict themselves. I found that very interesting. This is the thing. I'm going to repeat that. A soldier is someone that is prepared to confront threatening patterns without creating conflict themselves. My children, there is so much to know. Our dear child, King Arthur, he was a soldier, but he was not the soldier as such. He was a soldier that carried the vitality of universal knowledge. He did not fight for the cause. He stood for the cause. The light, the chalice that shines from him and continues to do so, is coming back to you all, my children. He, us, you, all have the connectivity with the Christ energy, are all the same thing. Do not disempower yourself, thinking you are sick, my child, my children, my people. Abstain from the necessity to change your heartbeat. Love more. Be more in the present. Accept what it is you are, and no more at that point. The vitality of love is our way through. Give your time to people. Allow your love to show without the need to generate something for yourself. Gift people your time. Gift people your love. Stand and talk. Stand and shine and be what you are. Not just a human being, but as a shining sun of the whole universe. You may think there are very few of you, yet it only takes one shining coin amongst many dull coins for something to change. This something is changing. Let us just hope it is you. You must hope it is you. You must gain hope in corners where you don't think there is hope to be found. There is love in every generation, but you must generate that yourself. The resonance, so you can change your heart. Accept the person that you are. You resonate with the pattern that you will become. God bless you for now, my children. God bless you for now and forever. God bless you. That is the end of my storytelling today.